Black Waitress noticed a small detail that saved a billionaire millions. Her hands smelled faintly of coffee and dish soap as she slid a plate across the counter. To the billionaire in the tailored navy suit, she was just a waitress with tired eyes. But when she leaned closer, her gaze froze on a detail so small no one else had noticed. What she saw in that instant would save him millions, and change both their lives forever. Before we dive into this powerful story, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you never miss these emotional stories that could change the way you see life. Now, let's begin. The Bridgeside Diner was never quiet. It had its own kind of orchestra, the sharp clang of plates hitting the pass-through, the hiss of bacon fat on the griddle, the dull thud of boots on tiled floors. Conversations layered over it all, forming a chorus of complaints about bad bosses, long shifts, broken cars, and bills stacked too high. For Alana Brooks, this noise wasn't chaos. It was her lullaby and her alarm clock. She had grown up with it. Her mother had worked these same booths before sickness took her too early, and Alana had slipped into the role like it was a hand-me-down apron. At 28, she moved like she was born to serve, balancing trays against her hip, weaving between booths with practiced grace, and keeping her smile intact even when exhaustion clung to her bones. She didn't let on that her sneakers had holes in the soles or that her rent was 3 weeks late. Her customers didn't see her the way she saw herself. To them, she was just the waitress. The one who remembered how you liked your coffee, the one who didn't flinch when you barked orders, the one who always said, "Have a blessed day," even when the world wasn't blessing her back. But beneath that apron and polite nod was a mind that never stopped working. Numbers. Patterns. Details. They glowed for her like streetlights in the dark. She had once dreamed of becoming an accountant, even enrolled in community college night classes. But tuition had collapsed under the weight of hospital bills when her mother passed, and Alana had tucked her dreams away like fragile glass. Still, she never stopped seeing. And that morning, what she saw would test everything she thought she knew about staying invisible. The diner bell above the door chimed, and in walked a man who didn't belong. Not here. Not among truckers with oil-stained jackets, not beside exhausted nurses grabbing coffee before their night shift ended, not between construction crews arguing about the Yankees game. He was taller than most, shoulders broad beneath a tailored navy suit. His tie was a precise Windsor knot, his shoes polished so sharply the overhead lights bounced off them. He carried no briefcase, just a leather folio tucked under one arm and a phone in the other hand, thumb moving with relentless precision. James Whitmore, billionaire, CEO of Whitmore Industries. His name had appeared on the news. Alana sometimes caught on the tiny TV above the diner counter. Headlines about mergers, lawsuits, acquisitions worth billions that she could barely fathom. And now he was here, in her section. Alana smoothed her apron and approached with the same calm she wore like armor. "Good morning, sir. Booth or counter?" He didn't look up. His voice was clipped, efficient. "Booth." She led him to booth 7 by the window. He sat without a word of thanks, sliding his folio onto the table, phone still in hand. Alana handed him a menu out of habit, but she knew he wouldn't open it. Men like him didn't need menus. They already knew what they wanted, or they didn't care because someone else usually ordered for them. "Coffee?" she asked. "Black. Strong." She nodded, jotting it down even though she never forgot. As she walked back toward the counter, she let herself glance once quickly at his screen. Numbers. Spreadsheets. Columns of expenses and revenues. Her eyes caught a misaligned figure, just for a second, before she turned away. It made her chest tighten. While the coffee brewed, Alana leaned against the counter, pen tapping her order pad. Most people wouldn't notice a number in a spreadsheet for a stranger. But Alana wasn't most people. Her brain ticked like a calculator, and that brief glimpse was enough to register something was off. It was probably none of her business. No, it was definitely none of her business. She shook her head, picked up the coffee pot, and reminded herself to stay in her lane. Billionaires didn't listen to waitresses. But as she poured the dark liquid into his cup, she couldn't shake the pull of that detail. "More sugar for you today, sir?" she asked, slipping into her customer service voice. James finally looked up, eyes a piercing, icy blue. For a fraction of a second he studied her, as if surprised she had addressed him directly. His gaze carried weight, the kind that made others shrink. "2 packs," he said. Alana smiled, nodded, and slid the sugar caddy closer. Her heart, though, was racing. Because she knew. That number on his screen? It wasn't just a typo. If the pattern in the column continued the way her mind calculated, it meant someone was siphoning money. Millions, maybe more. She bit the inside of her cheek. What would it cost her to say something? What would it cost her to stay silent? She stepped back, the coffee pot warm in her hand, and for the first time in years, Alana felt the edges of her world begin to shift. As James settled in, tapping his gold pen against his pad, Alana drifted back behind the counter, her mind spiraling. Her love for numbers wasn't something she often admitted. When she was younger, she had dreamed of crunching numbers in a glass-walled office, running her fingers over sleek keyboards instead of greasy diner menus. She had been the girl who corrected math teachers politely, who balanced her mom's bills at 15, who helped neighbors understand their loans. But poverty had a way of stealing futures. She remembered sitting in the admissions office at community college, her heart leaping when the counselor told her she'd been accepted into the accounting program. She remembered her mother coughing in the waiting room, health deteriorating. She remembered the bills piling, tuition overdue, the counselor's face when she admitted she coughed. Silence stretched between them. Alana shifted, suddenly aware of the eyes of her coworker Maria, peeking from behind the counter, curious about why Alana was standing at the Billionaire's booth for so long. She straightened her shoulders. "I didn't mean to pry. I just thought you should know." James studied her for a long moment. Most people in his orbit wanted something from him: money, power, approval. This woman seemed to want nothing. She hadn't asked for a job, hadn't demanded a reward. She had simply risked embarrassment to tell the truth. And it shook something loose inside him. "What's your name again?" he asked. "Alana Brooks." He repeated it quietly, as if committing it to memory. "Well, Miss Brooks," he said at last, "you may have just saved my company millions. I don't say this often, but thank you." The words sounded foreign in his mouth, but they were sincere. Alana blinked, heat rising to her cheeks. No one of his stature had ever thanked her for anything. "You're welcome," she murmured, then quickly stepped back, clutching her order pad like a shield. For the rest of his meal, James barely touched his eggs. His mind raced, fingers flying across the keyboard as he dug deeper, confirming what she had said. She was right. Unbelievably, impossibly right. And Alana? She floated through the rest of her shift in a daze. Part of her wanted to hide, afraid she had overstepped. Another part wanted to scream with pride. Because for once, her G of the diner had emptied out by the time James closed his laptop with a sharp snap. His untouched eggs were cold, his coffee long gone. But his mind buzzed with more energy than it had in months. The waitress, Alana, had seen in minutes what his entire financial team had missed. It both infuriated him and fascinated him. Alana was wiping down a booth when his shadow stretched across the table. She looked up, startled to find him standing there, folio tucked under his arm, his gaze piercing but no longer cold. "Miss Brooks," he said, "you have a sharp eye." She forced a polite smile, clutching the rag in her hands. "Just doing my job, sir." "No," he said firmly. "You went far beyond your job. And I don't ignore people who save me millions." Alana shifted uncomfortably, glancing toward Maria at the counter, who was watching with wide eyes. "It was nothing." "Nothing." His brow arched. "It was insight. And I could use more of it. Do you have time to talk after your shift?" Her breath caught. "Talk." "Yes. Coffee. My driver can take us somewhere quiet." Alana's heart raced. Every instinct told her this was insane. She was a waitress. He was a billionaire. Their worlds weren't meant to collide beyond this booth. But another voice whispered, "What if this is the chance you've been waiting for?" When her shift ended, Alana stepped outside into the brisk New Jersey air, apron tucked into her bag. James's black car waited at the curb, sleek and imposing. Her fingers toyed with her phone. One call to cancel. One excuse about being too tired. She could walk home like always, disappear into her small apartment, and pretend this morning never happened. But then she remembered the way her heart had leapt when James confirmed she was right. The validation she had craved for years. She exhaled and slid into the back seat. The cafe James chose was nothing like the diner. Glass walls, soft jazz, baristas who looked like art students. Alana sat across from him, clutching a latte she couldn't afford if not for his insistence on paying. He leaned forward, fingers steepled. "Tell me the truth. How did you see it?" She shrugged, staring into the foam. "Numbers just fit together for me. Like puzzles. If a piece is wrong, it jumps out." "Did you study finance?" "Community college," she admitted. "I wanted to be an accountant." "But," she trailed off, the memory of overdue tuition bills pressing like a weight on her chest. James's expression softened, just slightly. Life got in the way. "Something like that," she said quietly. He studied her for a long moment. "Then, you realize, don't you, that you may have uncovered fraud on a massive scale?" Her head jerked up. "Fraud?" "Yes. If someone is siphoning funds the way you suggested, this isn't a typo. It's theft. Inside my company." His voice hardened, a storm brewing behind his eyes. "And I intend to find out who." Over the next week, James called her. More than once. At first, Alana thought it was a mistake, a one-off curiosity. But he kept asking her to look at numbers. He sent screenshots, reports, ledgers. She would scan them on her phone during breaks, fingers stained with coffee grounds, apron tied around her waist, and text back her observations. And each time she was right. "You're wasted at that diner," James told her one evening over the phone. "You have a gift." Alana's chest tightened. "A gift doesn't pay the bills." "It could," he pressed. "Work for me. At least consult. I'll compensate you properly." Her hand trembled. The offer was intoxicating. But fear gnawed at her. Billionaires didn't hand out opportunities without strings. And what if she failed? What if this fragile trust crumbled and she was left worse off than before? "I need time to think," she whispered. At the diner, Maria cornered her in the kitchen. "Girl, why is a man like that calling you? What's going on?" Alana flushed. "It's not what you think." Maria smirked. "Aha. And I'm the Queen of England." Then her face softened. "Just be careful, Alana. Men like him? They don't see girls like us." "Not really." Alana swallowed hard. Maria's warning stung because it carried truth. She couldn't let herself believe she was special to him. This was about numbers. Business. Nothing more. Still, her heart raced every time his name lit up her phone. Meanwhile, James's world began to crack. He confronted his CFO in a tense boardroom meeting. "These numbers don't add up," James said, slamming the report on the table. The CFO blustered, offering excuses. James wasn't satisfied. "Someone is siphoning funds. And I want to know who." Behind the tinted glass, executives shifted uncomfortably. Whispers spread. And in the center of it all, James knew one thing. It was the waitress who had opened his eyes. One evening, after a brutal day of meetings, James found himself back at the diner. He slipped into booth 7. Alana approached, pen in hand, her smile nervous but genuine. "Back again." "Best coffee in town," he said dryly. She rolled her eyes. "You mean the only coffee within 10 miles of your driver's route?" For the first time, he laughed. Really laughed. And the sound startled them both. As she poured his refill, their eyes met. For a heartbeat, the diner noise faded. Two worlds, Waitress and Billionaire, no longer felt so far apart. Do you believe people from completely different worlds can truly understand each other, or are some divides too wide to cross? Share your thoughts in the comments. Sparkles. But not everyone welcomed Alana's involvement. At Whitmore Industries, whispers grew. A waitress? Advising the CEO. Board members scoffed. Assistants rolled their eyes. Some called it reckless, others scandalous. James ignored them. But Alana felt the weight of their scorn through every tense phone call, every sideways glance when she accompanied him once to the office. "I don't belong here," she murmured to James afterward, sitting in the back of his car. "You belong exactly where your talent puts you," he countered. But as much as she wanted to believe him, doubt gnawed at her. Was she truly rising, or was she just a temporary curiosity in his high-powered world? The pressure exploded one evening when James discovered the fraud was worse than they thought. Tens of millions had vanished. The board demanded answers. Investors were restless. And James, staring at the glowing spreadsheets late into the night, picked up his phone and called the only person who had seen it all from the start. "Alana," he said, voice ragged, "I need you." Her breath caught. "Not your insight. Not your numbers. You." She closed her eyes, heart racing. In that moment, she knew, whatever came next would change everything. The storm broke on a Thursday morning. James stood at the head of the long glass table in Whitmore Tower's top-floor boardroom. The Manhattan skyline glittered beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows, but no one dared look at it. All eyes were on the CEO, whose fury burned hotter than the city sun. "This company is bleeding," James said, his voice like steel on glass. Tens of millions siphoned off. And no one in this room caught it. Around the table, executives shifted, papers rustled, throats cleared nervously. At the far end, CFO Richard Hale, James's long-trusted advisor, smoothed his tie, trying to look calm. "We're still investigating." "No," James cut in sharply. "She found it." Gasps rippled through the room. Every head turned toward Alana, who sat nervously at the edge of the table in a borrowed blazer that still smelled faintly of Maria's perfume. The waitress. The outsider. Alana's stomach twisted as a dozen calculating eyes bore into her. She wanted to sink through the leather chair, vanish back to her diner where no one judged her. But James's faith had dragged her here, and now all she could do was pray she wouldn't crumble. Richard Hale leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "With all due respect, sir, you're basing accusations of fraud on the word of a waitress?" The word dripped like poison. Waitress. Alana's cheeks burned. Her nails dug into her palms under the table. James's voice dropped into a deadly calm. "On the word of the only person who saw what the rest of you missed." Richard's jaw tightened. "Or the only person clever enough to plant the idea in your head. We don't know her background. For all we know, she could be working with whoever's stealing from us." Murmurs rose around the table. Executives nodding. Whispers sharpening. Suspicion spreading like wildfire. Alana's heart lurched. She opened her mouth, but no words came. Her throat felt strangled. For years, Alana had lived in the shadows. She had trained herself to stay quiet, to let insults roll off her back, to survive by never being seen. And now, in front of the most powerful men and women she had ever encountered, her entire being was under attack. She wanted to run. She wanted to shout. She wanted to cry. But then she caught James's eyes across the table. His gaze was steady, unwavering. A silent message: stand your ground. Alana drew in a shaky breath. "I'm not stealing from anyone," she said, her voice trembling at first, then firmer. "I'm here because I noticed something wrong. I don't have anything to gain by lying." "Except access to the CEO," Richard sneered. "Convenient, isn't it?" The boardroom buzzed with low laughter. Alana's chest constricted. For a moment, doubt clawed at her. Maybe I don't belong here. Maybe they're right. But then her mother's voice echoed again in her mind. "Your mind is worth more than gold, baby." She straightened her spine. "Pull up the expense reports," she said suddenly, surprising even herself. The room fell silent. James gestured to the projector. Numbers flashed onto the screen. Alana rose, her knees weak, her palms sweaty. She walked to the screen, every step heavy with the weight of scrutiny. Her finger traced a column. "Here. The expense jumps irregularly every third month. It looks like growth, but if you follow the trail, it's always funneled through subsidiaries linked to a shell company." She clicked the remote. Another screen appeared. And here, payroll records. Phantom employees. No one cross-checked because the system masked them under bonuses. She turned, eyes scanning the room. This isn't sloppy accounting. It's deliberate. A pattern. And if you follow the shell company trail far enough, it leads. Her voice faltered. She glanced at James. His jaw tightened. To Richard Hale. The room exploded. Gasps. Shouts. Chairs scraping. Richard shot to his feet, face red. "This is outrageous. She's fabricating this to protect herself." James slammed his hand on the table, silencing the room. "Enough." He pulled a folder from his folio, tossing it across the table. Papers spilled out, private investigations he had quietly ordered the moment Alana raised her suspicions. "Bank records don't lie, Richard," James said coldly. "You funneled company funds into personal accounts hidden under shell companies. Millions. You betrayed this company." Richard's face drained of color. For a moment, the mask slipped, guilt flashing in his eyes. Then he bolted for the door. Security intercepted him before he made it 2 steps. The room erupted again, but all Alana could hear was the thunder of her heartbeat. She had been right. Again. And she had exposed one of the most powerful men in James's empire. Hours later, the boardroom was empty. The city stretched silent and vast beyond the windows. James stood by the glass, shoulders heavy, watching the storm clouds roll over Manhattan. Alana lingered by the door, unsure if she should leave. Her body still trembled from the confrontation, her mind buzzing with disbelief. Finally, James turned. His expression was unreadable. "You realize," he said slowly, "you didn't just save me millions today. You saved this company. And you exposed the man I trusted most." Alana swallowed hard. "I didn't mean to." "Yes, you did," James interrupted, his voice softer now. "You meant every word. And you were brave enough to say it when everyone wanted you silent." Silence stretched. Then, almost against her will, Alana whispered, "Do you still think I'm just a waitress?" James's eyes softened. For the first time since she met him, the walls in his gaze lowered. "No, Alana," he said. "I think you're the reason I still have a company to run." The weight of his words settled over them, heavier than any compliment she'd ever received. Her throat tightened, but this time not with fear, with something warmer. Something that felt dangerously like hope. They stood there, 2 silhouettes against the city skyline, a billionaire and a waitress, their worlds colliding not by accident, but by the undeniable force of truth. And for the first time, both of them wondered, maybe they weren't so different after all. If you were in Alana's shoes, would you have stood your ground against an entire boardroom, or would fear have kept you silent? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Sparkles. The storm didn't end in the boardroom. It spilled into the streets, the papers, the networks. By the next morning, headlines blazed across every financial site. Whitmore Industries CFO arrested in fraud scandal. Millions siphoned through shell companies. Anonymous source claims a waitress uncovered it all. Alana stared at the news on Maria's cracked phone screen during her shift at the diner. Her stomach flipped. Anonymous source. She knew it was her. Everyone at the diner suspected it was her. Suddenly, she wasn't just Alana Brooks, the girl who remembered your coffee order. She was Alana Brooks, the waitress who took down a billionaire's CFO. And that terrified her. Reporters swarmed outside Whitmore Tower, microphones raised, cameras flashing. "Mr. Whitmore. Who uncovered the fraud? Was it true a waitress helped you? Is she your new advisor, or something more?" James pushed through the chaos with his usual composure, but inside he boiled. The world always wanted to twist truth into scandal. He wanted to shield Alana from it, but it was too late. Inside his office, he found her waiting nervously by the window, arms wrapped around herself. "They know," she whispered. He nodded. "The press always finds out." Her throat tightened. "I didn't ask for this. I just wanted to help." "You did more than help," he said firmly. "You exposed a betrayal that would have destroyed us. You should be proud." But her eyes filled with tears. "I don't belong in your world, James. I'm just me." He crossed the room slowly, stopping just a step away. "You belong wherever your talent takes you," he said softly. "And if you'll let me, I want to make you part of this company. Officially. Full salary. Full respect. No one will ever call you just a waitress again." Her heart stuttered. It was everything she had once dreamed of, a chance to use her mind, to step out of the shadows. But fear gnawed at her. If she said yes, would she lose herself in his world of glass towers and ruthless boardrooms? Would she become a pawn, another cog, another story for people to twist? "I need to think," she whispered, her voice breaking. James didn't push. He simply nodded. "Then think. And know that whatever you decide, you've already changed everything." That night, Alana walked the quiet streets of her neighborhood. Street lamps flickered, The smell of fried food drifted from corner shops. Kids played basketball with a dented hoop nailed to a wall. She passed the small brick apartment where her mother used to sit by the window, humming old gospel songs, her eyes tired but proud. Alana stopped, staring up at the darkened window. "Mom," she whispered into the night. "I wish you could see me now. I wish you could tell me what to do." For a moment, she closed her eyes, and it was as if she could hear her mother's voice again. "Baby, don't let fear make your choices. Step where your heart tells you, and the world will move with you." Tears slid down Alana's cheeks. She realized then, she couldn't shrink back into the diner. Not anymore. Her mother had given too much for her to stay small. The next morning, Alana walked into Whitmore Tower. Heads turned. Whispers followed. But her steps were steady now. James looked up from his desk as she entered. His eyes searched hers, waiting. She drew a breath. "I'll do it. I'll take the position. But on one condition." His brows arched. "Which is?" "That you don't treat me like charity. I don't want favors. I want respect. I want to earn this." A slow smile spread across his face. "That's exactly why you deserve it." Weeks turned into months. Alana's small desk in the corner of James's office filled with files and reports. She tackled them with quiet brilliance, uncovering inconsistencies others overlooked, proposing solutions executives hadn't considered. At first, the board resisted her presence. But slowly, grudgingly, respect replaced skepticism. Even Maria, visiting the office one day with a box of Alana's forgotten things, gasped. "Girl, you look like you run the place." Alana laughed, but deep down, she knew she was no longer the girl who hid in shadows. Late nights became common, James pacing by the window, Alana hunched over spreadsheets, the city lights flickering below. They talked. Not just about numbers, but about life. James confessed the loneliness of power, how wealth built walls instead of bridges. Alana shared the ache of poverty, how dreams felt like luxuries you couldn't afford. In those quiet hours, something fragile and powerful grew between them. Not just respect. Not just partnership. But something warmer. One night, as she packed up her things, James said softly, "You've changed me, Alana." She looked at him, surprised. "How?" "You remind me what matters. Not the money. Not the headlines. But the truth. The courage to see it. The courage to speak it." Her heart swelled. But she only smiled gently and said, "Then I guess we're even." But life always tests the strongest bonds. Months later, a new crisis hit, a hostile takeover attempt. The board panicked. Investors threatened to pull out. The company teetered on the edge. In the emergency meeting, voices shouted, papers flew, chaos reigned. And it was Alana, the former waitress, who stood, her voice cutting through the noise. "Stop," she said firmly. "Look at the numbers. We're letting fear blind us. If we hold steady, restructure here, here, and here," she pointed to the charts, "we can block the takeover and come out stronger." Silence. Slowly, heads nodded. Even the fiercest skeptics couldn't deny the clarity of her plan. James's chest swelled with pride as he watched her. She wasn't just helping him anymore. She was leading. The takeover failed. Whitmore Industries survived, stronger than before. At the celebration dinner, James raised his glass. "To Alana Brooks," he said, his voice carrying through the hall. "The woman who saved this company not once, but twice. And who taught me that brilliance doesn't come from titles, but from truth." Applause thundered. Alana's cheeks burned, but this time, she didn't shrink. She stood tall, smiling through tears. Later, as the crowd faded and the city lights glittered outside, James found her alone on the balcony. "You were extraordinary tonight," he said quietly. She laughed softly. "I'm just me." "No," he said, stepping closer. "You're more than that. You've always been more." Their eyes met, the city humming below them. And for the first time, Alana allowed herself to believe it. Because she wasn't just a waitress anymore. She was a woman who had faced giants, spoken truth, and changed lives. And beside her, the billionaire who once dismissed her had become the man who believed in her more than anyone else ever had. The diner still stood, noisy as ever, plates clattering, voices rising. Sometimes, on her rare free mornings, Alana slipped inside, sat at the counter, and let the familiar sounds wash over her. It reminded her where she came from. But when she walked back into Whitmore Tower, heels clicking, head held high, it reminded her where she was going. And for the first time in her life, Alana Brooks felt like she belonged everywhere her courage could carry her. Alana spoke up, stood tall, and changed her life forever. What about you? What dream or truth are you holding back because of fear? Maybe today is the day to step forward. Share your story in the comments. It might inspire someone else to be brave. Thanks for watching. Please stay tuned for more interesting stories.